thank you, Adam and Greg, today for the interview. Can you both tell me a little bit more about your backstory, how you guys got started in the industry?
Go for it.
Right. So I went the development route for quite a while, working at a bunch of different companies, and just wasn't feeling like I was doing anything. I ended up doing like an independent film for like $100,000 called Carolyn and Jackie. We have a mutual friend who was a filmmaker, was able to like secure, a small amount of money, and doing it, we were like, this is making a movie, not just doing working a desk job. So I jumped from job to job and then quickly became unemployed. God, Greg, I'm sort of like drowning in this right now. Are you able?
That's great. I'm enjoying it greatly.
Okay. So
you
anyway,
want me to talk for you? I can do it. I got it down.
You have it down?
I've got it down.
Okay. Greg's gonna take over.
Oh shit! Too much pressure. So Adam made Carolyn and Jackie. He realized that was a marketable skill, actually making a movie, and he hadn't made a movie in 10 years. He had a terrible production staff on that movie, so he learned how to hands-on produce a movie. From there, he got a bunch of calls to line produce and produce commercials, music videos, things like that, and just started doing it. And because he's a very smart, capable guy, he turned out to be very good at it. And then, and now here we are.
Awesome.
So and now because he did my intro, I can bring him in. So Greg and I were roommates in college. Well, I went the film route. He went into litigation. He became a lawyer and a trial attorney, and was pretty miserable at it. But we remained very close friends. We would talk about it. And I had gotten the opportunity to do one of the segments for VHS Viral, and asked if Greg would come on and join, just because he was bored and kind of interested. And I offered to pay him nothing.
It's true.
Greg stood up on set and was the most capable human being I've ever worked with. And so very quickly it was like, hey, let's do this again, but forever. And so we became producing partners off of that. He left law altogether. And yeah, that's how we formed a company.
That's awesome. That was actually my next question, asking how you guys formed Divide and Conquer. How'd you guys come up with the name?
It's something we used to yell at each other originally, because we were kind of doing the job of multiple people on set. Like, we were the coordinator and the production manager and the line producer and the PA. Like, we were just doing everything. So we kept on yelling, Divide and Conquer, you do this, I do this, Divide and Conquer. So it kind of just came about naturally.
That's awesome. What advice would you guys give young producers who are starting their own companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things I'm proud that we did is we really said yes to everything. Like, if anything was of interest to us, we said yes to commercial work and any way that we could, sustain ourselves financially. But at the same time, when someone wanted to make a short film, it was like a director we liked, we jumped on board. And so I think that one of the hardest things, for me coming out of film school, in which it's really structured, and someone says, hey, you've got to make 5 films in a semester, and here are the people you're going to do it with, to go into the real world where you have to drum up your own productions. It's really hard. And so what I think we kind of learned is that I know who else has ambition to make something. If there's like a filmmaker who's like, hey, I got a few $1,000s, I want to make this short, like, say yes, like get your hands dirty. And so I think, by the time we made our first film, we'd made, God, Greg, I don't even know, like, definitely over 50 short form projects.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Easily. Yeah. And I mean, I think something we learned was that having a marketable skill in terms of being a hands-on person who can actually take a concept or a script through to completion was the most valuable thing we had going. A lot of people have good taste, a lot of people have good ideas and things like that, but actually being able to be trustworthy and trusted, taking something from start to finish, was the biggest boost we had in our career, because people would just be like, oh, these guys are trustworthy, they've made a bunch of things, and like making things begets making things, and it just sort of snowballs from there.
Okay. if you guys notice a little pause, make sure there's no lag or anything. So I'm not trying to, be weird. So you guys are basically known for getting things done. I know for a lot of indie producers, it's hard to raise funds. Nowadays, you have like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, things like that to help raise funding. Do you guys recommend the crowdfunding for the indie filmmakers, or are there other tips and advice about raising funds as an indie producer?
I mean, it can be a good route. I think the thing people need to recognize about running a crowdfunding campaign is the campaign itself is a full-time job. And if you're not able to dedicate and actually it's not easy, because if you're going to actually raise money that's more than a little bit for a small short film, you need to expand beyond just asking your friends and family for money on Kickstarter. And that's a whole skill on its own that is completely independent from making a film. So it's yes, sure, if you can do that and pull that off and help get a short film off the ground, that's great. But I don't know that a lot of people truly understand the level of dedication and work it will be to actually do that and then deliver back to your audience who bought it. On top of that, it feels it's people who can tap into an existing network or fan base of any kind are more successful at that. If you don't have any of that, just being realistic about your prospects there will be really smart, because I feel nothing harms or nothing takes the wind out of your sails as much as a failed crowdfunding campaign where you got 10% or 20% of your goal because you weren't really aware or ready for what that entailed. And I think beyond that, raising 100,000, 200,000 more for a feature film, it just seems like it's possible but not likely. And as long as people are aware of that, then sure, give it a try, but just know that your odds are pretty tiny.
Yeah, I would say, first off, money raising never gets easier.
No.
It sucks. It's the worst part of the job. In fact, we talk about it, you get so good at this idea, we are producers. I think we keep getting better and better at this one thing. And then someone's like, that's awesome that you're so good at this one thing. Also, now try and raise money. It's it's a whole other skill set that you're kind of asked to take on as well. But with that in mind, I think about, especially for sort of younger filmmakers, people that are starting up, I think a lot of people, they spend time in their room, right? They do the job that puts money in their bank account so that they can survive, and then they write and they rewrite and they try and get that great script, and maybe sometimes they make a short, or sometimes they make that first feature. But it goes back to this idea of continuing to try and work. I would say that one of the benefits of looking, whether you're a director, producer, whatever you do, trying to work on other people's projects, it's not just the idea of you gain experience seeing it firsthand, but you're also building relationships with people that you can call upon. So for instance, we were able to, the director who made Carol and Jackie, he also made this other film, Newly Single, but between those two movies was trying to get the next bigger thing done. They're trying to get a $3 to $5 million movie, and just wasn't having any success with that. And finally was hit that point where it's I can make a movie for cheap. I just haven't acknowledged that. And so when he finally decided to make another sort of micro budget film, we had sort of built up all these relationships with great crew members. So we were able to bring a DP who had his own camera equipment, another producer on, and she brought on a whole crew that worked at a really small amount, but they got points on the project itself. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if people are struggling to sort of raise money, one of the things that you can do is actually start investing in other people, start building those relationships so that you can call those in, and then you can actually go make a feature for a few hundred, for even a few $1,000s.
Right.
And I think something there that Adam just touched on that's really smart too is that feature that he's talking about. The director wrote it to the things he had on hand, locations that we had access to for free, elements that he knew that we could get for free, whether it's his house or a friend's bar or somebody works at an office, and he sort of reverse engineered a micro budget script based on the things that we knew we had access to that could help keep the cost down. And it was actually really smart because it made that whole thing possible. And I think something when you're talking about people starting out, it's good to stretch, but making something's better than not making something. And so writing to what you have is better than being like, oh, I need $300,000 on Kickstarter because I've got to go out and get these locations and get this or that, instead of just sort of starting out and being a little bit more realistic and being like, I have a house, there's a park nearby, there's some woods, we have these 5 cars, let's craft a story around these things we have so we could really make it achievable.
I think the biggest misstep a lot of young filmmakers make is they put all their eggs into one basket, whether that be like their first short, their first feature, like they really put everything into one thing. They call it all their favorites. And then afterwards, if that thing doesn't connect in some giant way, they really have nothing else. They have no other momentum to keep going. And the filmmakers, that we see succeed are the ones who figure out a way to keep doing things no matter what.
Okay. So do you go ahead.
One more thing, just like, and on that front, you can make 10 shorts, 9 of them can be flops for lack of a better word, but if one is great and really hits, then like that's all you need, and the other ones will sort of be forgotten, and then that's enough to keep building momentum off of that. So it's like making more gives you more opportunity to continue making more.
That makes sense. Especially with us all being quarantined right now, do you think making the short proofs of concepts, kind of like David Sandberg and Muschietti, do you think those proof of concepts are pretty effective, in terms of being seen and possibly getting a feature deal from a studio?
It's tough. I mean, everything kind of comes in waves, right? Like for some time, like these sort of proof of concept films were like really hot, and just like those sort of like they're like they're becoming there's so many of them now that it's like they've sort of like lost that excitement of, oh, I've never seen something like this. And then the other thing is that a lot of filmmakers are proving that they are technically adept at horror, like that their craftsmanship is high. But I feel like there's so many now. There's so many like again, craftsmanship adept horror filmmakers that it's really hard to sort of rise above those ranks. I think that at least we can only talk from our own perspective. I don't know what the studio's looking at, but from our own perspective, watching a lot of these things, like I feel more drawn to shorts that show both craftsmanship, but then also some ability to craft a good story, to get excellent performances, to say something. And I think that if you can do that, if you can check all those boxes, I think you're still going to get the same opportunity as the proof of concept, but maybe even more so.
Yeah. Right. So at the end of the day, you can have any route in. There's no one route that makes sense. It's like if you do something at an incredibly high level, you'll have a chance. So it's really hard to say yes or no or whatever. But I think Adam's point about, we watch a lot of short films and things like that, and when it's just cool or there's no sort of substance there, it's really hard to get excited about it and excited about a filmmaker or a project. It's like people have, oh, I've got a feature script, let's take one scene and shoot that, and then we'll call that a proof of concept. If you're not showing as a director your ability to tell a story, short film is actually an incredibly hard medium to work in, because say you have 8 minutes to tell a complete story. Somebody who can do that and tell a whole story in 8 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is, that's so much more impressive and so much more likely to lead to more stuff than just being like, here's one scene that's got all these really cool elements, but it's not really complete. So in that way, a proof of concept, if it has a sense of story and arc and completion to it, that could be great. But if it's just sort of like, here's like a cool, scary sequence or whatever, like I don't see a lot of point in that, because like Adam said, there's a lot of people who can really do that these days, but the ability to tell a story is what matters. And then going back to just the larger point about a short or a proof of concept getting a deal with a studio, it's like, yes, that can 100% happen if you make something that's incredible. But that's just true of everybody at any time. If you make a short or a video or whatever it is that's so much better than everything else out there, of course you're going to get noticed and get attention. And that's sort of, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is just make something that's better than everything else that's out there.
Right.
I have a weird like when young filmmakers ask, I do have a suggestion, which is I kind of say, if you're going to make the greatest short of all time, make that. If it's not going to be, maybe make a feature instead. And I know that sounds crazy, but I would say that like a feature is more forgivable, because if you can do some interesting things, even if it is for like a micro budget, I think it has more chances to play festivals. I think it has more chances to get seen by more people. I think that pulling off an hour and a half of a story and being compelling, showcasing that ability is more valuable than showing the ability to gather people's attention for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I would challenge a lot of people to say, like, hey, if you do have a little bit of money and you can actually put together a full feature, like do that for super cheap instead of a short. But again, unless it's the best short ever, then do the short.
Right. Okay, you guys are producers, but you do a lot of work with directors and screenwriters. What type of advice would you give the young directors and screenwriters who are trying to break in and get that opportunity to work with Netflix or get their screenplays or shorts seen?
I would say for a screenwriter, the thing that I've seen in common with every good screenwriter we've worked with is that they are very hard on their own material, and that they rewrite and really think about the effectiveness of each scene. They think about how the scene ends and how the next one begins. And the thing that I see in common with all the screeners that kind of fail is that they just really fall in love with the writing. And I think that I feel like people that fall in love with their writing should really sort of gain a little bit of a self-awareness that maybe they're falling in love with it because they're a little bit biased towards it, and try and sort of really do whatever they can to reach some level of objectivity that they can be just as harsh on it as an outside critic would be.
And I think it's super important for them to understand that writing a script that is good enough to be put into production by an actual studio is an incredibly high bar. We're talking about less than 1% of all things that are written, probably less than 0.1% at this point. So it's just about writing more and doing more and just getting better and understanding that, it's very unlikely that your first script that you ever write is going to be just so good that the studios are going to be knocking down your door. It's more likely that, it's your 10th script or your 20th script or whatever it is. And just having that awareness to keep working on it and keep getting better gives you the best chance. It's sort of like that old adage of you become an overnight success after 20 years of hard work. And that's really true, especially on the screenwriting front, where the people who do it more and more are the people that you can see. And like some of the best screenwriters we know, every time you talk to them, like, oh, we're almost done with another one, and we're almost done with another one. And a lot of times, they're of mixed quality. Some are really great, some are not. Some need a lot of work, some are pretty far along, but they're just always writing and they're always doing more. And you can really see that they improve over time.
Yeah, I would also say that, of every great screenwriter we know, we also have read scripts of theirs that are just straight up like throwaways. And that's okay. Like, that's all right. Like, they have another thing. Yeah, a lot of younger screenwriters kind of fall in love with everything they've ever done, and they have a stack of projects. And when we sit with them, they'll be like, "Oh, do you like this? Because I wrote this a few years ago. I think this could be good." And all the great screenwriters we work with, they objectively look back at their old scripts and go, like, "This is not me anymore." And they wouldn't burden us with things from 2 or 3 years back, because they've improved at such a level that it's like night and day.
Yeah. Right. Greg, it's kind of funny. This kind of off topic, but you mentioned like 20 years of hard work. I got to go to Blumhouse one day to hang out with Adam Robitel, and he was showing me his at that time his cut of Insidious: The Last Key, and I think at that time, I've been trying myself to like break in and establish connections and all that, probably around like the 5-year mark. But I asked him for advice, and he's like, "Man, it took me 15 years from the time I graduated at USC to get to." So hearing it from you too, I'm at 10 years right now, and I feel like I'm starting to open up more doors. So I'm glad to hear that from you as well.
Yeah, I was banging my head against the wall for a good decade.
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm trying to think right now. Like I graduated when I was 20. I produced my first film at 27.
Mm-hmm.
This is the whole time, like just working, working job after job, while at the same time, like at nights,
Right.
whatever, reading, like writing, doing whatever, working on other people's shorts, just working all the time.
Uh-huh.
So that was 27. And then 33 is when we as a company made our first film. So that was my second feature.
Mm-hmm.
And now that was right. That was right. That was 2015. And now 5 years later, like we've made 25 films together. And so,
Wow.
but I think that's also really important too, which is that like you hit these milestones in your career where you're struggling so hard to hit that next milestone. You don't know what's going to happen. You're working, and you hit it. And all of a sudden, something that happened before just disappears because now you're thinking about the next milestone, and that one seems so far away. And you have to, and it's the same marathon every single time where it keeps it's further out than you think it is, and you're hustling so hard. And sometimes I think to myself, like, I really wish I appreciated these different stages that I've been in, because
Right.
for the time it was this feeling of like, I'll never make it. I'll never make a movie. I'll never make another movie. And I'll never make a movie for over X amount of money. And eventually I hit that point, and then don't ever appreciate all the hard work that I did before. Now I'm just thinking about the next thing.
Right. Okay.
I don't know if there's a lesson out of that.
No. There is. I'm actually 34 right now, and I was the associate producer on a feature film called Followed, which was actually supposed to be in 200 theaters on April 10th, but because of the coronavirus,
yeah,
my first feature film in theaters is now not happening. So
that's been really painful to watch with a lot of people. Their features, their shorts, whether they're going to play South by or whether they were going to like be released online. I think that one of the things that's fortunate about being a producer and being trying to be as prolific as possible is that you have so many different investments in different films and different filmmakers that it's sort of easier to go through this time. But like there's a large level of empathy from us with the people that we're working with, where they've put so much time and energy into this thing that was going to happen, and they're seeing it being delayed. I mean, the only positive of this experience right now is that like you're part of a group of people that are all in this together. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
This is sort of like FOMO, where you're seeing like, where you got the cutoff and everyone else is like succeeding. It's like everyone is now in this horrible pause period.
Yeah. Exactly. Hopefully it ends soon. We know you guys like to diversify the group of filmmakers you work with. Why is it important to the both of you to ensure you represent the underrepresented in Hollywood?
You mean just in terms of like the diversity of our filmmakers we work with?
Yeah. Like you were talking to Allison yesterday about how you want to work with more female directors, and a lot of your past films are either minority directors or females. So why is it important to work with the underrepresented for you guys?
Well, I think it comes from, I think honestly, the nice thing about it is it actually just comes from a general perspective of being a producer. And like as a producer, it's a really nice opportunity to sort of be the rocket fuel that helps project other people's perspectives and visions out into the world. And I've said before, but like as a director, you have to get really tunnel visioned about like what it is that you bring to the table and try and deliver that throughout a course of a career. But as a producer, like I would like the films we work on to be as diverse as the films on our walls. Like whether they be like foreign comedy, romance, musicals, dramas. Genre is such a great horror, and genre is such great ways of telling interesting perspectives in commercial spaces, because like people watch these, but at the same time, like our tastes are incredibly wide. I say that to say that when we have work with a filmmaker from a different background, it's not about like checking a diversity box. It's not about sort of like being part of like a wave of good. It's literally like we are so interested in what you have to say and what your perspective on the world is. Like let us be part of your team that helps project. I don't know that perspective. I couldn't say anything to it, but I hear it. I think it's worthwhile for the rest of the world to know. So like let's let's hustle for you and try and like get it out there.
Right. Are you still there, Greg?
Yep. Sorry. And then
That's
something else on that point too. I think that's important is like, I'm going to talk about the importance of diversity and making sure voices have a platform. I think it's important to note too that it's not just about making or allowing people to make movies that are diverse and necessarily push diversity as a point, but I think it's just important to make sure that, you know, we have a good friend who something he says to us all the time is like, I want to make, you know, sci-fi movies and make sure it's, you know, starring all diverse people, no white people to be seen. And not because it's a movie about that, but because it's just helping to normalize, you know, seeing different people on screen and what it means to grow up and watch and be like, there's all women or there's all people of color or there's all of this, and just making sure that it's helping to show the world that this is just regular. Like, it doesn't need to have that necessarily overt message, but it's just about putting those faces on screen and telling stories with that perspective. You can help start to shape how people perceive the world a little bit, and you know, that's something that's also super important to us.
Okay. You guys collaborate a lot with Blumhouse. How did that relationship with Jason Blum start? And what maybe some advice that Jason gave you guys that you're willing to share with indie filmmakers?
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
I was fortunate enough to go through the Sundance producing labs, and Greg went through the Catalyst labs. So Sundance has been really supportive to us as a company. Coming out of that, Jason was our mentor. And,
cool.
Yeah, and he really. It's funny because like there's that whole like that saying of like, you know, like an opportunity meets preparation. Like, we've been banging our heads against the wall, like I said, for quite a while, but Jason coming into our lives was like a really just a giant positive, and we're really like, you know, thankful to this day that he became such a big benefactor. And it's not just him that became a mentor, like literally his entire company was open to us and became mentors to us. Like across the board, there are all these executives and heads of different divisions of his that have like helped us become better producers. So it was with him that we were able to get our first films up and running. And since then, there have been like 13 different collaborations, whether that's introducing us to screenplays and directors, or helping us with financing, or bringing us on to a few of their larger films with either Universal or Focus. And so that, I mean, that was just that right there. That's just like, that was luck. That was like where again, like we've been hustling and we got into a certain point in our career and met the right person at the right time who really has helped us out. In terms of advice, it's hard to say because I feel like there's so much, right, Greg? I'm like trying to like pull it down to something.
I'd say more than anything, at least for me, it's he and they as a company place value on making things and just, you know, trying to be a place that actually makes movies, and now they're going into TV. And I think it's just a really good ethos of let's make movies, because making movies is what we're all here to do. And like their whole company from Jason on down through all the people who work there, like it's just about people who like to make movies, which is something that I think jives well with us and something that we've really picked up on as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think people compare him to Roger Corman, but I don't think that's really that accurate. I think that they do that because, again, like there's just because there's such a high output. But Greg's right. Like we work with a lot of different companies, and when we work with Blumhouse, one of the nice things is that they have so much going on and so much that they care about that they move fast, and they're not like, they don't get in the weeds on things. They're like, this part's important, like let's make it, like there's a momentum to it. Whereas, you know, often like when we work with people that have a less of an output, things become much more precious. And you'll find that like as things become more precious, you become less objective and you become more granular, and you start focusing on the wrong parts of a production as opposed to like just letting the filmmaker do their thing. I think so much the magic of a movie isn't something that's in a script or part of a meeting. It's something that you actually like find organically through the process. And I think Blumhouse is a really great platform where filmmakers can explore and find that thing. By the time that the film screens and they do test screenings, they see that like that thing that, again, that wasn't talked about, that's just sort of the natural progress of production, post, etc., like actually like gels in this large way. And that's when you get movies like, I think, Get Out or you know, hits that were never expected.
Yep. I think it's a really good point too about like not being precious about the development process is something they do really well, where, you know, you get the script, which is the blueprint, to a place where you can really see the director taking either their own script or the handoff of the script and having the ability to mold it into something, and understanding that, yeah, the magic of a film comes through the making of it, not through the sitting and talking about it. And that's something we see a lot of, you know, it's studios, it's financiers, it's other companies that do a lot of development stuff where it's all about getting the script to be perfection. And oh, did we just lose him?
We did, but we're still recording, so maybe.
Hey.
So this is to everyone else out there who's still listening.
Hey. All right. Well, that's
you just your
thought. No, I lost my train of thought, but you get it.
I get it. Well, this has been great.
Cool.
For anyone else who, like I said, who's still listening, I hope this was helpful, and we hope you're all staying safe out there. Keep your distance.
Keep your distance. All right.
Happy birthday.